Welcome to the TOEFL Listening section. In this section, you will listen to an academic lecture and then answer questions about what you heard. You may take notes while you listen. You will have time to review your notes before answering the questions. Listen to part of a lecture in a university class. You will hear the lecture only once, so listen carefully. After the lecture, you will answer some questions about what you heard. Some questions ask about the main ideas and supporting details. Other questions ask you to make inferences or connections between ideas. Answer each question based on what is stated or implied in the lecture.
Good morning. Today we will focus on strategic decision-making as formalized in game theory and its role in modeling conflict and cooperation. Strategic decision-making examines how rational agents choose actions when their payoffs depend on the actions of others. That simple idea leads to a set of mathematical tools for predicting outcomes in firms, politics, and social interactions. A core concept is the Nash Equilibrium. A strategy profile is a Nash equilibrium when no player can do better by unilaterally changing their strategy given the strategies of others. This provides a baseline prediction of strategic behavior. Not all equilibria are equally desirable. We also use Pareto optimality to assess whether an outcome can be improved for all players. Often, strategic decision-making looks for equilibria that are stable and efficient, or considers mechanisms to move play toward efficiency. Let me give you a concrete example. In the classic prisoner's dilemma, two firms or players face the temptation to defect for short-term gain. If the game is played once, defection is the dominant strategy, and the Nash equilibrium is inefficient. However, if the same two firms interact repeatedly, strategies that condition current play on past behavior can sustain cooperation. Trigger strategies, for example, punish defection by reverting to a non-cooperative equilibrium for some future period. In an oligopoly context, we contrast Cournot and Bertrand models to show how strategic variables matter. Cournot firms choose quantities and often end up with higher prices, while Bertrand competition has firms choose prices and can drive prices down to marginal cost. Those examples show that the strategic environment, including timing and information, shapes the equilibrium. In sequential games, backward induction helps us compute sub-game perfect equilibria that respect credible threats. Credible commitment is another strategic device. When an actor can commit to a future action in a way that others believe, that commitment can change the opponent's best response and therefore the equilibrium outcome. When I said that credible commitment changes the opponent's best response, I meant that altering incentives can shift equilibria in repeated interactions. Consider a real-world case. A country that ties its hands by forming a binding treaty can deter an adversary from escalating a dispute. The treaty functions as a commitment device that changes payoffs and therefore strategic choices. We also study coordination games like the stag hunt. The stag hunt has multiple Nash equilibria. One equilibrium is payoff superior but requires mutual trust. The other is safer but less efficient. I use the stag hunt to show how coordination problems lead to multiple equilibria and how risk dominance can select an outcome in practice. Signaling and screening address asymmetric information in strategic decision-making. For example, a job market signaling model shows how education can convey private information about worker quality. Finally, mixed strategies are useful when no pure strategy equilibrium exists or when unpredictability is valuable. Randomizing can prevent exploitation by opponents and is an important strategic tool. In summary, strategic decision-making uses concepts like Nash equilibrium, sub-game perfection, credible commitment, and repeated strategies to model how rational agents interact in conflict and cooperation settings. These tools allow us to analyze and sometimes design incentives to achieve better outcomes.
Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
When I said that credible commitment changes the opponent's best response, I meant that altering incentives can shift equilibria in repeated interactions.
This concludes the listening section. For more TOEFL practice tests and study materials, visit Spinta.org.